They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But I wonder if you can remember what you had for breakfast this morning. I mean, what cereal you ate, what spread you put on your toast. If you have problems remembering, it's probably because when it comes to food, our memories only last as long as that food gives us that satisfaction. I know that all too well as a parent because my kids all throughout the day constantly are saying to me,
Daddy, I'm hungry. Thank you, Daddy. Daddy, can I have something to eat?
"Yeah, Dad."
Thank you.
It's true, isn't it? When it comes to food, it's only a matter of time until we're hungry again. The satisfying nature of food is only temporary. But Jesus teaches that there is a source of food that never loses its satisfying power. Can you imagine that? Never having to eat, never having to prepare another meal, never having to go to the grocery store to get your groceries. Imagine the time you would save. However, here in John 6, the source of that food is not what is to be expected. So let me set the scene for you. John 6 opens with Jesus feeding a crowd of over 5,000 people out of a young boy's lunchbox. The following day, the crowd wakes up to find Jesus had disappeared. Their meal ticket had gone. So after looking around where they were for a bit and not being able to find him, they hightailed it across the lake to a town called Capernaum, where they eventually catch up with Jesus, which is where our story takes place today in John 6, 25 to 35. So once they've caught up with Jesus, they ask a seemingly innocent question. They say, "When did you get here?" But Jesus doesn't answer their question. Instead, he confronts their motives. See, my family, we're suckers for free stuff. It's not uncommon on a weekend to see the right family, Nissan Pathfinder, merge across 3 lanes of traffic to pull a U-turn to come back to where we've just spotted a free sausage sizzle on the side of the road. You know the ones where the radio station puts on free sausages and lollies and balloons and newspapers and drinks. They set up outside local businesses that have actually paid for them to be there. And their primary reason for being there is not to give out free stuff, but to draw people's attention to the business that they're there for. Often that business is having a sale or a promotion or something like that. But when the right family turn up, we're not there to know about the business. We're there for the free stuff, which is exactly the same motives as this crowd here in John's story. Look there in verse 26. Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill." In other words, Jesus is saying you're not here because you saw my signs or you're interested in what they pointed to. You're just here for another feed. For me, it's all about getting another free sausage. I'm generally not interested in why the sausages are free. I just want to satisfy my stomach. But Jesus wants the crowd to know that there is something more. There is something that can truly satisfy. But it seems as though the crowd just doesn't get it. I mean, if you ask my wife, and most women will testify to the same thing, men, we are notorious for selective hearing. We tend to switch off unless we are genuinely interested in what's being said. For example, my wife will tend to download her day at the end of the day. And she'll tell me about the kids, she'll tell me about what happened at school, she'll tell me about the shopping, about bills that need to be paid. But in all those things, all I tend to hear is that she bought my new guitar strings and she also bought my favourite chocolate. In fact, my wife knows this all too well, so often she'll throw in there a random story about fairies or goblins just to see if I'm listening. See, the crowd here is doing the same thing to Jesus. They are so fixated on the desire for another sausage that they keep missing what Jesus is telling them. In verse 33, Jesus says, "The bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." But the crowd hears something more like bread, blah, 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 comes, blah, 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 gives life, blah. It's obvious in their response, isn't it? They say, "Sir, give us this bread always." They still think this bread is something that will fill their stomachs. So in light of their stubbornness, Jesus tries again. This time he's even more explicit. "I am the bread of life Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst." Now, Jesus isn't claiming to be bread in that physical sense, but just as bread is essential to nourish the physical body, it is Jesus alone that can satisfy our spiritual and eternal need of forgiveness with God. Jesus is the answer to our deepest need. But the crowd just doesn't get it. How easy is it to be distracted or even blinded to our real eternal need and to the only one who can satisfy that need? The crowd was so caught up in material things that provide them with temporal satisfaction that they completely missed their deepest and eternal need. Where do you seek satisfaction? Do you seek satisfaction in relationships to the point where you'll do whatever it costs so that people would like you? Do you find satisfaction in your achievements so that you will do whatever and walk over whoever to get that next job promotion? Do you find your satisfaction in toys, new toys like iPhones and iWatches and new cars, new technology, to the point where you'll spend whatever it costs to get those new things? Like the bread that Jesus provided in John 6, these things are often good gifts from God. But if they distract us from our real and eternal need for a Saviour, then they're not good, are they? You see, Jesus was not scorned, he was not hung on a tree to provide us with good jobs, nice homes, good friends, cool toys. He suffered and died to satisfy the wrath of God towards us because of our rebellion and sin. He then rose from the dead, reconciling us with the Father in heaven. It is Jesus who truly satisfies.